Okay, everyone, and welcome to another Living in the Flow in January at the hour of 22. So 10 o'clock at night for me on the 22nd of the 1st, 2022. So wonderful numbers. And over to you, dear Tanya.
Hello, and thank you, Alexis, and to everyone here. And actually, it's interesting to note that we have a knack with numbers. Like, even when we're not, we didn't plan this in this way, and in other occasions, there have been really interesting synchronicities with numbers that are always so interesting, and that it's like a sweet whisper from our soul saying, yes, yes, expand, expand. Go ahead, share your joy, your enthusiasm, your inspiration. Be this.
And there were a couple of people that have actually waited 1 hour earlier. We used to run this show an hour earlier, but we've decided to go a bit later just to try to accommodate more people at different time zones. This is one of the big challenges to try to accommodate, because we do have people from all over the world, and that's why we've been playing with the times quite a bit. For those of you that have been joining live, and I've mentioned in my last post to please check your live time zone, and always check, because the times are changing, when people have the daylight savings and all sorts of different times. So please make sure to check time just to avoid any hiccups and things like that. And yes, welcome each and every one of you, and thank you, dear Tanya. And before we go into this beautiful topic, which is one of my favorite topics on freedom, I would just like to sort of mention firstly, thank you to each one who donated and who keeps donating. You know who you are. This is the most helpful to us to keep running this show. And also, please check out both of our websites, because we are having constantly new things. When you are living with the soul, with the soul present, you're always in this dynamic world, and you're always asked to go one step further. So one of those things that where each Tanya and I both go one step further is in presenting all the time new and different workshops, because we are being asked to stretch ourselves. And also the times keep changing, and people do need different things. So I would like to draw your attention to the next month. I've been doing 2 hour live workshops each month. I used to do 1 hour, but I find that we can go much deeper in 2 hours, and people really need this depth now, because we do have to go into the bottom of things, and 2 hours is not too long and not too short. So next one is with Yeshua, presenting Suffer No More. So that's a very accurate topic, and he knows a lot about it, because he's moved from suffering into joy, where he now is. He is joy. And then the next month in March, I will have Mary Magdalene and I will be presenting that 2 hours on dynamic change. And after the live show, those attending have 3 months access to the recordings. And then for others who didn't join live, you can purchase them on cloud on demand classes, and you can bundle them with a private session. Also in February, I've got coming up the 3 months, which I'm really looking forward to, Magi Live Here with Michael, and we're going to be working and exploring this dance of consciousness and energy, the very latest topics on how we are creators, on the potentials, and all of these different things that are coming up this year, 2021, 2022, even in January. I've been having incredible insights, because the energies have changed so much. So every day I experience something different, something new. And yes, and thank you for those who have attended the 3 months with Mary Magdalene and Yeshua, which is finishing tomorrow. We've got the last episode, live episode tomorrow. It's been a wonderful trip, and I'm going to do it next year again over the Christmas, New Year, traveling with Yeshua and Mary Magdalene. What a better way. It's a wonderful way to spend this festive season. So for this time, thank you for each and every one of you who participated. And yes, looking forward to all of the different things that are coming up, the private sessions that have so much depth with each and every one. And also I want to thank you each one for trusting me and for allowing me to serve you in this way. Over to you there, Tanya.
Oh wow, what beautiful, beautiful creations. I can feel the it they're all like roses, roses, roses full of beautiful petals and a scent that is so sweet. Thank you for sharing your inspiration, your wisdom in that way. It's interesting because in I'm also starting a 3-month journey in February, and actually those yours and mine are so complementary. I would actually recommend doing both because they are really complementary. It's interesting how everything we do is complementary. It's really interesting. So those 3 months, February, March, and April, the enlightening showers of presence are starting again, but now they're very different from the first time in that they include an individual session per month. And so this is a kind of supportive, compassionate, inspiring, expansional, and loving journey in which, through the compassionate breath and through each one communing with each other in mastery, so sharing each one's insights, wisdoms, breakthroughs, etc., there is such a level of expansion in everyday life, in each one's personal everyday life, that new earth actually becomes more and more the thing. So the magic becomes more and more, oh wow, I'm living it. So enlightening showers of presence only have 4 places, so if you'd like to still join, it's starting soon and almost closed. And also the Be Beyond Illusion workshop, which happens every other month or sometimes further apart, which is only for 4 people. And the level of depth that we have gone into those 2.5, 3 hour workshops is incredible because more each time there are different people, and each time it becomes more intimate, more profound, and more mind-blowing. So the mind will just have no place to hold on to with the depth of transformation that comes through from the willingness to surrender to soul. Because all in all, each and every single thing I do is really providing that safe space, that reunion for the experience of the new earth, for the experience of new energy, for that to be more and more real for everyone who has really chosen it for themselves. Because of course each one experiences whatever each one is choosing and allowing. So it's interesting when I listen to what you're sharing, Alexis, and the tune of it, the music of it, the fragrance of it, the feeling of it is so compassionate and loving and caring. And then the 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 offerings I have are also within that same thing, but they're completely different things. And so that just goes to show that in every single one's life, when you tap into that which is unique to you, you will have inspiration beyond even your capacity in each moment to put it forth. Because just, I'm sure Alexis also goes through this, some things we have to put on the back burner because we don't have time to implement all of them, because the inspiration is just so much that we're spoiled for choice. But the thing is, just tap into your own unique, whatever is unique that's coming from that joyous passion within you. That will be a success 100% of the time. So then no one really needs to go and join success workshops and stuff, because you're successful at being the wholeness of you if you allow it. So thank you all for joining me as well in the offerings I have, and for joining Alexis and for joining both of us here in these Living in the Flow sessions and the New Energy Waltz. It has been so far incredibly enchanting, and I am sure it will only expand beyond. So far, it's beyond what we could imagine it could be. So that therefore it will keep on being beyond whatever we could imagine. So thank you all, because each one of you is an integral part of that experience that we love so much to have here in the Living in the Flow.
And that goes for each one of you also that is joining later and not in present and live. You are just as much part of this co-creation. And Tanya, thank you for all these beautiful words. And it has been such a pleasure working with you. Our work together, it really isn't work. We have to find different words because it's just such an ease and grace. We just bang, bang, bang. It's just, and we don't have any conflict or anything, you know, about like this is what it's been the most beautiful, because there is no worry about who puts up the title. You know, we just give each other space, and sometimes you do, sometimes I do, and it is that beautiful dance when each, like you've been describing, when you have that abundance coming from yourself, from your soul self, from the depths of you, then this kind of fights and jealousies and competition really goes away, because nobody in your own sovereignty can take anything from you.
Yeah.
And this is such a huge thing, because as in within mass consciousness, as people, let's say, you know, normal, we're going to use that with asterisks, people that have not awakened yet, one of the things for them is this safety. Safety is such a huge thing, and inner space. And not only that, but not only physical safety, there are so many safeties, and this has to do with this freedom and sovereignty. Safety is not freedom, because you are not free to be yourself. You are not free to your own space. You are not free to your own inner self, because you feel in that space, in that mass consciousness, you feel that other people keep imposing on you, whether it's the belief systems, whether it's society with their ideas, with their rules, with their constantly, there is something, it feels like that, impinging into your own freedom, into your own sovereign space. And then before you are awakened, you actually keep trying to fulfill all of those parameters, all of those requirements, because you think that this is how you're going to feel safe, this is how you're going to be successful. And it does work. It does work until it doesn't, until you come to that place when it's like, okay, this is a lifetime of awakening. And then all of the rules, once you start on that journey, all the rules change. And why do the rules change? Because all of a sudden you bring into this game the presence of your whole self, who is not bound by anything, who is absolutely, completely and utterly free. Freedom means nothing to your greater self, because it's meaningless to it. And so it has sent parts of itself, which we call human beings, into this kind of environment, into this kind of experience, to experience limitation, to experience what it's like not to feel free, to experience all these different kind of things that it cannot experience in its own being when it's aware of its wholeness, because it is completely free, it is completely safe. And so there are many layers in this. When we talk about freedom, you see, there is freedom from within the game, and from within the game we would look at freedom. For example, you can look at the history of humanity in this limit, like in this narrative that is one thing first and next, this singular reality that people look at, and how people as humanity in many places, we are getting more and more freedom in some ways, until of course Corona happened. But freedom to move, freedom to not have violence impinged upon you by rulers, by all of these kind of freedoms. So when you are within the game, It's a different kind of game where you're battling for freedom, and within that space, it does actually matter what you do within that space, and it makes the difference when, for example, you win. But in the long run, there is no winning, because when you have this bigger picture, then a whole different narrative starts to emerge within you. And so we are kind of talking here all these different levels and layers, because they all intertwine and they all dance together, because because we are staying physical. So it is important also to be physically free, not just this idea that, sometimes we used to have these utopian ideas and fluffy ideas of what freedom means, and yet we never were able to achieve that within the narrative, within the game. But now it is possible to become aware, for those of you who are allowing so and have allowed so, to actually become aware of yourself outside of the human narrative, outside of the game. And that is where everything changes, because then you are free in a whole different level. You are free then to participate in the game, or you are free to take the step back. You are free to take all these different points of view. You are not stuck in the black and white view of the warrior. You're not stuck in any of these kind of narratives that happen within the game that we call humanity, within the game that we call, life within the mass consciousness. And so it is a huge change. And when you are allowing the presence of your soul, there are so many things that happen, that so many aha moments where you realize so many places within you where you weren't free, where you were just walking, where you were just allowing yourself to exist in these tiny little spaces of yourself. And then through this process of transformation, you break down, you melt all these walls, and all of a sudden you realize that not only that you have a much bigger room to move in within yourself, but you actually have many rooms. There are many rooms within this house that is you. And not only that, then you can step out in the garden, and then there is beyond your garden, there is a whole wilderness, and that still is you. So you see how there are so many incredible levels and layers of freedom. And a lot of the time people get stuck within one meaning of freedom, or they will say, well, this person said the freedom is this, or that person said the freedom is that. And maybe they contradict, but it's not the case, because it depends. You always have to look at the bigger picture, which which place are they speaking of, what is the context of what they are saying. That's what matters, because there are so many different layers. And yet freedom is such a it's like a balm. It's like when you are realizing it more and more, it's like a balm for your heart. For my heart, it's like a relief, when there's all these freedoms that I'm realizing, and it's like another relief and another relief when you're going through all of these lies. And they're not really, they're lies in some way because they're not truths, but in another way they're not lies because there was a choice made from the greater part of you to participate in this game. And so the lies basically are just rules of the game, which we have freely participated. And yes, we've gone in so deeply that parts of us got stuck there. And that's why the game has gone on for much longer, perhaps, and was much more painful than initially intended to. But it's been an experience, and yet there comes a time when we step out of it as well. Over to you, dear Tanya.
Yes, 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 and more yes. I will I will just keep on adding to that. It's interesting to notice that our wholeness is 100% free. So the concept of freedom doesn't even exist. It is, as you said, it is so free that we could allow ourselves to descend into whatever kind of experience of that which we are not, whatever kind, whatever color, and still know that we would bring all of that back together into one cohesive whole that then made total sense, though it made no sense at all. So the duality can make a lot of sense as long as we accept both sides. And so our isness, our essence, our I am is so absolutely grandly free that we could be human. We could be the human facet that came into this experience. And even in that first time when there was still no notion of what duality is, and then we started somehow producing it, and then somehow we got stuck along the way, and still we were never bound, though we felt bound as the human self, felt bound many times, felt constricted, felt imprisoned, yet the true nature of who we are was never bound, ever corrupted, ever hurt, ever destroyed, none of that. It was always just there, knowing that its human facet would come out victorious on the other side of all of those phoenix fires that it went through throughout existence. And so that is the grandness of each and every one of us, is that we have been able to experience all of this, and yet we are none of it. And then again, we are, because all of these experiences are not thrown in the rubbish bin, are not sent out into the ether somewhere. They are actually brought back in to the whole database of our own I am, our own isness, which then adds up to the whole database of every existing sentient being and creates an expanded reality, an expanded possibility, an expanded universe upon universe upon universe. So basically, we have never been anything but free, but we wanted to experience what it's like not to be free, just like Alexis said. And I remember I remember in 2008 or something like that, sitting in my living room and having a conversation with Adamus, with Saint Germain, and we were having this. We used to have conversations for a long time. We had conversations. Anyway, I was saying, yeah, I want freedom. That's what I want. I'm so sure of that. And I remember this smile, his smile, because he knew that my choice of freedom meant a whole revolution. So I was already in the midst of a revolution, and at that moment, I just thought it couldn't get any worse. But the moment I said, like really declared, like with all of my will, I want freedom. Oh boy, that's when all hell set loose. Why? Because all of those parts of me that were stuck and that had been hanging around for a long time, some of them for many centuries, even for millennia, waiting to be unstuck, they heard the call. When you say, I want freedom from the depths of you, the call goes out to all of you, no matter whether you are here or whether it's a part of you in another timeline far away. because you are you. I mean, you are you happening in all of those timelines. And so what happened from then on was nothing short of miraculous, really, because all I saw at that time was a mountain that never stopped growing. And each day it was like, oh, more stuff to accept, more stuff to blend with. How is this never gonna stop? I mean, it seems unending, and
Mm.
more and more and more, and until and one day I did the Dreamwalker Ascension, which was it. I think it doesn't exist anymore, with the Crimson Circle, and in that workshop, where I really felt, yeah, this is my last lifetime. At that time, I realized this freedom thing was so much more than what I had said, that like a year before. This freedom thing was really setting myself free, even from the cycles of life and death, and
Mm.
from reincarnation as a necessity, which doesn't mean that I might not choose to incarnate again, but that will not be because of cause and effect, of karma, of this or that or the other. That's a completely different thing. And I believe, and I really feel that with the transcendence we are coming through at the moment, as a collective and individually, massively, more and more of us are coming into our realization, into realizing who we truly are and all of these things. We are providing the space for it to be possible to be here, or to come in without losing connection. So it's sort of
Mm.
another phase. So to come in free and remain free. And but going back to that time of feeling what it meant for me in that moment, it's my last lifetime. And at that moment, and I was have going for a walk in the countryside, and I this was this sadness, at the same time looking at, oh wow, I mean, this is serious. This is serious business. This is not just sort of like, it's not talking about it. This is really serious. So I, but I love this earth. I don't get to come back, or, and then it was all of these layers again of
Mhm.
attachment, of addiction, even, of all of those things that have kept us creating dramas in order to stay, because we did that for a long time, because many of us were already very close to ascending a long time ago, but wanted to stay on, and so started creating all sorts of stuff that we knew would keep us here for a longer experience. And so it sort of became a little bit sticky. And but then looking at it like, okay, so game over, like game over 100%. That was really the meaning of freedom in that moment, realizing, oh, so it's really being free from every single attachment, whatever it is, to people, to places, to activities,
Mm.
to food, to every single thing needs to go. And that's what brought me that sadness in that moment. Of course, that gave me a lot of stuff to integrate and look at, and to mourn as well, to mourn the old me, and to come further into the realization that I was losing nothing by releasing attachment, because there is a bit of an overlay as well, with a sense of, oh, but if I let go of this, I'm going to lose something.
Mm.
That is also not a freedom. The freedom resides in realizing that you never lose anything, you only continue experiencing, because there is nothing really to lose. There never
Mm.
has been. We are so complete unto ourselves that the even the concept of loss is an idiosyncrasy if compared to the wholeness of who we are.
Mm.
So loss is an illusion, but it needs to be dealt with, and with care and compassion and a lot of understanding for ourselves. So really holding ourselves lovingly and knowing how it feels to the human parts that were detached and attached to other things, to know, yes, I know what you're feeling, but it's okay because I also know something else. And you are not going to disappear because you are a part of me. So these parts, when they integrate and dissolve, become, of course, one with the wholeness that we are, and bring us their treasures, bring us their beauty, bring us their wisdom, their learning, each one such an exquisite different flavor, adding, 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 adding. So how could we lose anything? Because really it's just with everything we subtract, so with everything we let go of, we add more to who we truly are. Therefore, it's a big addition. I'm sure there's not enough pluses or even times I don't know how much to define how much more we are when we let go, so that we can experience that freedom more and more and more in this physicality, on this earth, in this experience right now, without having to die and come back again to live it in that way. So, freedom is an, um, a guarantee. It's not something that we sort of, that only some can have. It is. It is. That's it. It is. And the human self is constantly walking towards that it already is, that freedom. And then when there, freedom even itself disappears as a concept. But for the human that is experienced life here, no matter how wise we are, it still remains a concept. Because, of course, we have all of this experience of duality that shows us different things. But when we're feeling, for me, freedom is like a barometer. So if in a situation I feel less free, then it's up to me to go inside and find out what I can do to feel more free. It's not to fix whatever is make me feel not free. It's to go inside and not to fix myself, to just adjust my perspective so that the barometer can go back to normal, to my natural state, which is that peace, that candid knowingness that all is well in all of creation. So it's up to me always to adjust. If I'm not feeling free in any situation, I go inside and I adjust and realize, oh, but I am free.
Oh, it was just so delicious to listen to you and watch you, dear Tanya, as you were explaining this. And it is also interesting how, oh, yes, it was just beautiful. I was just breathing it in. And it's wonderful how you've so beautifully explained it. And we have such individual ways of experiencing it. And yes, at the same time, so similar, because I too have had very similar experiences that what you were describing, but within a different situation, within a different, context, within a different place, but such a similar feeling, because it is these flavors, these feelings that have to do with this. And then there are practical applications as well, because we are choosing to stay. And so we're bringing here, or rather allowing that freedom of our wholeness to be present. And you so beautifully described it, that you adjust and you change the perspective. And there are so many different perspectives and potentials that we can play with. And the more that we allow that freedom, that song of our soul. And for me, this sovereignty, this feeling, it was just when I really felt it, when I allowed it to bubble to my surface, to my awareness, it was just so incredibly delicious. It was just so incredibly poignant, and so incredibly, like, it brought all these different memories, not only of my human self, but from before the earth was even created, from the soul self, when it was dreaming of this, manifesting these incredible freedoms, when it was yearning for this physicality, for this physical. It didn't know at that time what it was yearning for, but it was for this kind of manifest, this energy made matter, which is a much more sort of solid experience of this freedom. And yes, like like you said, when we realize that, wow, this is my last lifetime, that incredible transformations happened, quite unbelievable, as to what comes up for release. And certain things that I often call them taboo, that for, a normal person, they would be very taboo to even think about. And yet, not only do you have to think about, it's not that thinking will resolve it, but you have to come to peace with it. You have to realize it. You have to release it. All of these dependencies on other people, on appraisals, on titles, so this is the practical side. It's not all happening somewhere in the ether. So this freedom manifests itself in the practical ways where, like you release some people, or you other people come into your life when, for example, maybe you didn't allow yourself to be free to be interacting with certain kinds of people. Maybe you were held down, imprisoned by low self-worth. Maybe you thought, that you just don't, you fit in certain human societies have very strong still caste layers, and so it's all of these things that practically come up for release. And if those people around you within your family unit don't understand you, there is oftentimes nobody that you can even explain or talk to about these things. But luckily, we have this kind of technology now that we have, and we can come together and talk about these things. And it makes it so much more easier, because really, some of the things that come for release, it's quite incredible and it's quite unbelievable. And it's also unbelievable how you as a human can absolutely understand what has come for release. You come to a point where you are so acutely perceptive and understanding of this communication on the inside without any words. It's not words, it's not voices, but you absolutely know what the greater self means, what the soul self means, what has come up for integration, what has to be released. And then another miracle is when you actually, for example, let's say if someone has been caught with their addictions, or whether it is to being in a partnership, whether it is to sex, to alcohol, to drug, to money, to work, anything that you can, and all of these kind of things look like they will never let you go. They look like as if you can't escape, and you can't escape without the presence of the soul. And as you're allowing this transmutation to happen, all of a sudden you become master of those things that before you were a slave to, that you were imprisoned by, that you didn't think you could ever. And in many ways, there's nothing you have to do. There's nothing you have to force yourself. It just naturally, peacefully leaves your life. All of a sudden you realize, wow, you come to these decision points where you actually have a decision where before there was none. And this is a huge freedom, when you can actually choose whether you follow the road of addiction or whether you follow the road of freedom. While before you weren't even aware where that choice point was. But all of a sudden you have this space within you where this choice comes. Choices, many choices come, and you can then choose. And that's where you are becoming a master. You are on the inside. It's all on the inside, because you all of a sudden can make choices of things where before there was none. And not only can you make choices, once you make the choice, that it goes into something new, that before you didn't think you were able to do this, all of a sudden this potential is here. You have the courage also to take those steps. You have the courage to love yourself. You have the courage to walk the path of freedom, to walk the path of your heart, where your heart tells you to go. You have the ability and firstly the ability to hear what your heart is saying, because that's your huge freedom, to hear what your heart is saying, to give credence to your heart, to believe your heart, to trust yourself. All of these are incredible freedoms, and they happen within the context of human life. They don't happen somewhere outside in utopia. They happen and have to do with absolutely what you are dealing with in every day, because your soul, your greater soul, knows absolutely intimate details of your life. And so when you are realizing and allowing freedom, it is within the context of your life. So whatever it is happening within your life, that's what will come up for a choice. That's what will come up for integration, so that you can then see and perceive those choices that you have, so that your inner vision, your inner space, the rooms within you can open up, that you can then choose different realities for yourself within your life, within your everyday life, that will be more free. And it's not that you have to then battle outside things, but you will have to choose to keep stepping your truth, because your heart will lead you into more and more freedom. But more and more freedom means that you come out, so to speak. You come out of your closet. You no longer hide behind all these things that you've picked up from society, from your parents, from the ancestry. You come out as who you really are. And that initially takes enormous amount of courage, because it's like all of a sudden you reveal who you are to your parents, to your loved ones, to your friends. And you then you are, like the risk is that they may not like who you are. The risk, and some may not, some will not. Some who benefited from you being in the closet, from you being imprisoned, will not like who you are unless they too change. They will leave, whether permanently or for a time being, until they too transform, or whatever that happens, you see. So this walk of freedom, like uh, before, personally, I thought, wow, it's what courage is has changed enormously, because I thought, well, courage is I have to go out on the street and carry all those signs, whatever. I thought that was courage. But courage is facing yourself. Courage is being yourself. Courage is following your heart. And yeah, maybe you end up on the street in the crowd walking. That really has got nothing to do with it. It all matters how you are on the inside, you see, as to what you do. Because when you are free, nothing is close to you. Because for me, very often, sometimes I would not want to release something, because I thought, like Tanya so beautifully said, I will lose it. But when I release it, it's not that I'm releasing that thing. I'm just releasing the imprisonment to that thing. If I'm so attached to that thing, I don't see anything else. But when I release it and I become more free, I allow myself to be more free, all of a sudden I have a smorgasbord of choice, And on that choice is also that thing that I was afraid to release. But very often, more often than not, I no more choose that, not because I can't, but because I've outgrown it, see? And so it's all of these kind of inner things that change, and this kind of, we keep ourselves so imprisoned by having to be right, by sticking to some principles, by, all of those are very strong, tough patterns that keep us on the same path. And so when you see someone who has trouble changing, they will say, oh, I've always been stubborn. And it used to be a good thing, maybe, to be stubborn. But in this being, this kind of thing, some of the things just have to go, not having patience with yourself, being stubborn, being not changeable, all of those things have no place in this new life that is so dynamic, that is always expanding, that is always, how can I, maybe growing is not the right way, but not the right word, but there's always something new that you are experiencing. And those kind of old traditional ways of being are old because they kept us, like Tanya mentioned, they kept us in those kind of ways, in those kind of patterns, and they continue to keep us. And some of these layers are so incredibly deep. And the best way to deal with them, because they keep coming back and keep coming back, and sometimes they feel like they are a circle. But then you decide, okay, I'm no longer going to look at this as a circle, because that's not very free. You change your perspective, and all of a sudden you see that actually, no, every time I come back to this place, I have actually learned some things new. I've done some things new. I've expanded. And then you realize, no, it's no longer a circle, it's a spiral. And as soon as you realize that, all of a sudden you are able to see even more new things. You see, it's all of this, it's in perspective. So if you think of yourself, everything keeps being the same, a circle, then yes, your energy will say, oh, okay, let's just then make it a circle. And then that's what it is. But as soon as you change that perspective, so sometimes you can only change perspective a little bit, but that's enough. And then in that little bit, all of a sudden you see new potentials, and you see new things that were just right there, but you haven't been able to see them before in your hypnotism of a circle. And then if you expand even more, you realize even the spiral makes no sense anymore, you see, because you are this grand being. What does it mean, a spiral? It's meaningless, you see. But it just depends on where you are, depends on your perspective, and you always start and you always be with where you are, with your things of daily life, with your things where it has to do with family, with jobs, with your whatever it is within those spaces that you keep allowing more freedom, that you keep allowing this space that freedom provides for choices, for potentials, for new things, so that you can then choose. And then the more you do this, the more you then realize, wow, look, I am not those things that I used to think I was, or that I was told I was. I am not just that. I am also that, but I am so much more. And you realize, wow, you can teach an older dog new tricks. And I'm talking that about myself. Like it's not, none of those kind of traditional sayings are true as to who you should be, what I should be, what you should be doing at whatever age, that you can't do new things, that you can't learn new things, because regardless of what age you are, and it's you open up, and all of a sudden you realize, I am also in this wholeness of me. I am also a child. I am also a teenager. I'm also a young person. All of these parts keep experiencing something new. I'm not stuck. And this again is another new freedom. And then you just keep going, keep expanding in this way. And then you deal with everything in your life in a new way. And you realize that, okay, maybe for some things jobs maybe have to go or something like that, people or new people, whatever, but it is within you, or you move, whether it is, but it is always within your life that you change. It is not that you have to wait for some kind of miracle day when everything changes. No, it can be beautifully slow, and this has to do also with soul, being compassion of the soul, because it doesn't want to destroy you, it doesn't want to destroy human life. Not none of the dramatic things would happen, because for some people to awaken or to keep going into transformation, dramatic things happen because they were so stuck. They maybe have to, perhaps someone dies, someone close to them dies, or they lose whatever was very valuable to them, or something like that. But there's no need for that if you keep being this flexible, flowing person. Then this dynamism of your soul has the room to come into your life and to keep changing. And the change can be very gentle, the change can be smooth. It all depends on your perspective and your attitude and how you take it. And it doesn't need any huge shocks or anything like that. It just depends on how you're going to go about this. Over to you, dear Tanya.
Yes, it's so relevant that you're sharing the fact that it's here, it's in your own human life. It doesn't require you becoming something else that you aren't, or going somewhere else that you aren't. Thank you so much for sharing that with so much clarity and so much grace. It was beautiful to listen. And what I find many times when working with people, with working with integration, is, for instance, the stubbornness you were mentioning. Um, Really, it's just a question of turning it around. Because in the world of duality, that is possible. So, if stubbornness has been serving you in a certain way, but that way is not serving you anymore, why not use that stubbornness, which can then become a quality, to help you stay firm and really keep on track with your surrender? You're allowing your soul to guide you. Be stubborn for that instead of stubborn to be stuck. Basically, it's to, then it changes into determination, really, but it's just using something that seemed to be like a shadow quality and turning it into something that is useful to you. And it can be with anything. And so there you are, you free that stubborn aspect from the weight of it and give it a new life. So you integrate that which you no longer needed. And one thing that people usually don't like to hear is we say, if you're still experience that, it's because you like it. It's because it's serving you in some way. And the person will say, no, no, of course I don't like it. I don't want this in my life anymore. I want to get rid of this. There you are. That's the whole thing. So what you like is that fight, that adrenaline of wanting to get rid of something, of having something to fight against or to fight for. It is very seductive, that kind of fighting kind of thing. Fighting against oneself, obviously, is what I mean here. Is like, no, I don't want this part of me to be controlling me anymore, but it keeps on getting in the way, and I keep on falling prey to it and all that. And say, well, for sure it's serving you in some way. Because if we look at those things, and we are always looking at them with animosity, with anger, and we're always trying to say no, because that part is so powerful that it overpowers my will and gets in the way, then you're not taking full responsibility. You're not realizing, one, that you created that part, so it's you. So if it's a part of you, it cannot be more powerful than everything else that you are. That's number one. And then, secondly, as long as you're staging a war against it, it will keep on fighting for its life. But the moment you realize, oh, wait a minute, this part of me has been serving me in this and this way and that way and the other way, And then you actually become grateful because it has been really good. It's done its job so perfectly. And it's even done its job way beyond you could imagine it could possibly do it. So then when you shift from fight to gratitude, and from just wanting to reject it to acceptance, then everything changes, because then the power of that part, or those, whatever, it doesn't matter, but let's just talk of one part here just for sake of example. The power that that part has amassed within the experience of itself will then be coming back into you, into the wholeness of you, and that power will be added to your pool of energy, to your pool of knowingness, of wisdom, of experience, everything. And so notice how much more then you will be capable of being in the experience of life with a whole set of tools, because each aspect brings tools back home. And so all of those tool sets, then I mean you'll be like a master builder, because your tool shed will be so full of any single tool you need when all of these aspects are integrated, that you've just got it all. You just need to pick it there. Oh, yeah, I've got that. Yeah, I got that. And there it is. And that gives you a huge freedom. Imagine. So you don't need to go out, buy any tools, because then all of the aspects have brought back their tools and your tool shed is absolutely full. It's all there. And you can just chill and choose to build whatever it is that it is that's coming from your creativity. And another really relevant thing, and it is in the sequence of what you beautifully shared, Alexis, is that the only place where we fully integrate is here and now. It's not somewhere out there in another universe, because we've chosen to be human, so therefore it's through the human experience that we integrate all of the humanness. It's not another time as well, like in another lifetime or whatever. If you have the consciousness and the awareness that you are ready for integration, for coming back home, then you are ready. I mean, then of course it gets a little bit tricky along the way. It gets a little bit challenging, because there's some parts of you that are a little bit more rowdy and noisier, and a little bit more like seeming like monsters, which aren't then at the end of the day, whatever. But yeah, well, it's all just you. What a wonderful creation. What a wonderful capacity to create all of those colors, all of those different flavors. And another important thing within this is that many times people tend to this, I'm sharing what I see a lot in when I'm working one to one with people, is tend to, but I already had this, I already,
Mm.
I was there, I've experienced that beauty, that oneness, and so, and why did I sort of, why did I get sidetracked, what happened, and I want to go back to that. No, you don't. You don't want to go back to that, because that moment was a moment of itself. And if everything else is happening in the meantime, stuff has come up for integration, is because that moment was whole, but it wasn't, because there were parts of you that were missing in the dance. So you're never going to experience that again, fortunately, because what you're going to experience as you integrate is going to be so much more than you could ever imagine. So, trying to sort of go back to something that seemed to be perfect is really counterproductive, and it's also being stuck. So, and it's also being attached to the need to self criticize. Like, oh, I was already there, and now I must be doing something wrong. There must be something wrong with me. I must be really bad at this, and I never get it right. And then there's all the self worth issues, and then even self hatred. And talking of which, I'd like to also add that many times I also come across this situation where So the grandness of self chose to come into human experience, and then at some point it's like the human realizes, oh shit, I'm here. No, I don't want to be here. I want to go away. No, 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 no. But then you can't because you're already here. So then you will have to experience the all of the human shape shifting magic, because that's all magic too, that we go through when living in separation from the grandness of who we are. And then from that kind of sort of cringing and holding back to, oh no, 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 but this is not really what I wanted. I didn't know it's going to be like this. I don't want, I want to go away. I want to go away. And then that makes the experience really tough, and everything, then the lifetimes upon lifetimes of tough. And then it's coming to a point of realizing, oh, wait a minute, but only if I truly, fully accept the fact that I am here because I chose to be here, and just really surrendering to that, can I come to a point of balance and really start experiencing that which my wholeness, essence, isness wanted in the first place. So, okay, all right, so it's here, isn't it? It's right here. Well, that's easy because I'm here now. So, I mean, all I need to do is stop avoiding being here and start embracing being here, and then start looking around and realizing the richness there is
Mm.
in being here. Noticing, oh, wait a minute. Oh, I hadn't seen that. Oh, wait a minute. Because the distraction was so big, trying to get out, trying
Mm.
to sort of, I don't know, space travel or time travel or whatever,
Basically
traveling out.
trying to escape oneself, isn't it?
Yes,
Trying to escape
exactly.
yourself.
Trying to escape being human, trying to
Yes.
escape being in human form, in
Yeah.
a human body, in a human life. That was so enticing. There was so much entertainment around that, that the realization of how simple it is just didn't hit.
Mm.
But then, if you all of a sudden just stop, okay, just stop everything. Oh, wait, I'm here. Oh, I'm here. Oh, that's simple. I'm here. Right. So, what am I going to do with my here right now? So, that the now, really embracing the now, not trying to go back to some better time, not trying to go out to some better place, really embracing the now here is a passport to freedom.
Mm.
Because from that full embrace, everything else starts flowering and showing itself, and the fight just ends. The human that's been battling and battling and battling and battling just
Mm.
disappears, and the fight ends. So it's so so simple. It sometimes seems to that stubborn part, no, 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 no. Can't be that simple. Can't be that simple. I mean, I'm be making an effort all of this time. How can it be that simple? Well, just allow that part to speak, but don't listen to it, because you know in your knowingness, in yourself, yes, it is that simple. And then that part can come back home too and realize, oh, okay, so I'm not needed anymore. Right? Let's do it a new way. That is what the freedom of here and now allows. And really, all of our timelines, they only have one place where they can collapse into one, which is here and now. No other place. Because time didn't even exist before we started creating space. So, um, it's in the space of your here that everything comes back into now. And then whatever you're going to experience from there, from that wholeness of your here now, oh wow, it just keeps on getting better and better, and there and yet not. So, I've said this more than once. The thing that the best is yet to come becomes nonsense, because
Mm.
you're experiencing the best all the time and you're not expecting anything better, though it's always more of that best. I mean, that's it. It's just best expanding. That's freedom.
And some of some of these things are so hard to explain, but I know exactly what you mean, because I know exactly what you mean.
Yeah, you know the carrot is no longer dangling in front of our
Mm,
nose. It
mm,
just disappears,
mm.
and
And
therefore it's best all the time.
it is, and there are some, like when what you mentioned, this owning it. There are some things that make such a huge difference when you actually own them, and one of them is one of those things that all is well in your world, all is well in all of the creation. When you own that, when you actually really own it, meaning that you feel it and you believe it and you trust it and you be it, then so much changes, because so much is actually of the old way of being is based off on everything is not safe. The best is out there somewhere. I have to struggle hard and fight everyone else. There's only one best, and I have to fight off everyone else to get it. But I never get it, because I'm never good enough. I'm never young enough. I'm never skinny enough. I'm never tall enough. I'm never big enough. I'm never rich enough. I'm never whatever, because it doesn't exist. And this is that kind of that's the real illusion. But people are so caught, like if you go into the mass consciousness, this seduction is so incredibly strong. And people are so completely caught into it, even though they don't realize they're never satisfied there, but they're always, trying to grab, trying to grasp. And so that is very, very unfree. And many people believe that certain countries are free and certain countries are not. But in reality, nobody in mass consciousness nowhere is free, even though it may appear for the little choices that one has, it may appear, but it is not really the case when you actually realize what the real freedoms really mean. Then you can be free anywhere. Like our dear friend Tobias, he realized himself when he was imprisoned in a prison cell, and he became completely free. He chose not to stay, but he was completely free within that space. So it's a very context and perspectives and just inner experiences of this freedom. So and owning certain things, like this is one's last lifetime. That's a huge one. That will completely change everything. All of a sudden, like Tanya so beautifully explained, all of a sudden, so many things become irrelevant, and so many other things all of a sudden come into your face, because you will see that this reality really is for us to learn, not to be a creator, but to learn to realize that we are the creator, that we are this grand being that is hiding in the smallness of ideas of being a small human. These are just ideas. And you have to learn to deal with yourself, with everything. There won't be any rescuer like second coming of Christ to make you feel happy, to make you feel joyful, to make you feel satisfied with your life, to make you feel master. All of these things that you have to change the inner reality. That's the bad news, maybe, for a human cell. The good news is that you have incredible amounts of help, and that there came a point within my journey when I realized just how much everything was under the domain of my soul. That, before it all looked very haphazard, very like coincidental. And then when I realized the bigger picture, I realized, oh my God, but I was completely guided. I was completely safe. I was completely always in this embrace of my soul, regardless of what it seemed. It's just all these seams like it. And so when you start owning these things, I am a creator of my reality, then you have to own that I am creating everything. And then you have to own that, yes, even if I seem not to like it, I create this. Because if you don't own it, then you are a victim of that. You see, you are not a master over it. You're a victim. And you can even say, I'm a master in this situation, and you own it, that you are creating, even if you don't see all of the ways in which you're doing this. And this is the whole point of these earthly experiences. One of the points is that we seem to, as a human, we seem to not know anything, when in reality, as a greater being, we do. So the realization is just really realizing that you already know it all. See, so it's not like some kind of, how can I say, it's incredible experience, but it's not, you just get to know who you really are. And in within that, you become this creator, and you need to then deal with everything, how you're creating, what you're creating. So that means taking responsibility for everything that happens in your life. But it is not from the mind's point of view, because if you're still, for people that are in mass consciousness, they have this erroneous idea that the mind knows everything, when it really doesn't know anything. But it is your this being who you really are, and that is the creator, and you're just realizing more and more and more. And so you can in this way claim, yes, I am a creator, even if you don't know all of the details, because if you really mean it, if you really own it, then your energy shifts and changes, and all of a sudden you start realizing, oh, so that's how I do it. Then you see the patterns of how you've created that particular thing that you didn't particularly like. You see, so you start realizing, you start seeing the big picture and seeing, oh, so that's how I created, right? So then you've claimed that you can, that this is you, and then you really realize how it is you see. But a lot of the times people claim, but they don't own it. So then it becomes like a really very odd situation, where they keep experiencing things that they think they don't like, but they don't actually, they're not able to change anything, because they haven't actually owned it. You see, there is one thing to be saying it, it is another thing to actually own it and feel it and allow that to permeate you. So when you say, I am a creator of my own experience, if I just say it here, I'm a creator of my own experience, it's just the mind thinking. It makes no difference, because I'm creating from down here, from my heart, from all of these other parts. But when I start feeling it, I am a creator, it permeates into your body. And that's when you can really start feeling and understanding the physics, the sacred geometry, all of this interaction between consciousness and energy, and how you're actually creating reality. But it of course, like Tanya so beautifully said, it's all of these parts that are not part of it yet will come knocking on your door, and that can actually be quite uncomfortable, and it is. And yet even there, you are the master, because you allow them to come home. You meet them with compassion, you meet them with self-love. You don't push them away. It doesn't matter how they are, because we've played in the 3D, we've played in duality for so long. We all have been both the villain and the victim. We all have been the most ugly and the most beautiful. And so we have to accept all of those shadowy parts, you see, and some of them are not pretty. And it is not pretty because when you claim that you are a creator, when you claim that all is well in all of your creation, all those parts that are not well will come and say, excuse me, what about this? So, you have to own them. You have to own them. And until you own everything about yourself, you're not in your mastery. But it's not as we mentioned before, it's a gradual process. So you keep learning, you keep allowing, you keep expanding, you keep experiencing, and you keep having the courage to be in that new expansion, because you are keep doing something new. You're not stagnating anymore. You're alive, you're breathing, you're living, you're excited, you're brilliant, you're all of these wonderful things. All of a sudden, you can own all of these things. You can own, you see, wherever you are in your life, right in your life. And even if there's still things in there that you want to change, it doesn't really bother you anymore, because now you know and you trust that you can change them. If you give your focus to them, all of a sudden they too will have to expand to be part of your daily life, to be part of this new self that you are allowing yourself to be. And before we go on, I've got a question that was sent to me earlier, so I'm just going to read it, and it has to do with freedom. Also, as you'll be discussing freedom today, I would like to ask how having to follow government's guidances on COVID comes into that. For instance, having to wear the mask at work or on tube, or not wanting to take the vaccine but then not being able to go and see my mom. Can we really still be free within the mass consciousness? So that's a very pertinent question.
It is. I believe we spoke, but it was during a new Energy Waltz that we discussed this. I remember that the last time when we had the new Energy Waltz. Would you like to? Can I say something
Yeah,
before?
go ahead. Yes, yeah, go ahead.
Okay. So just regarding the last thing you were sharing, when you were saying, that we know everything and our soul knows absolutely everything about us and about everything else, and then the more I have this experience of that wholeness, the more I know nothing. That's a funny contradiction
Absolutely. And I
with
have
this
that too.
reality, isn't it? Right?
Yes, yes.
It's like, but then there's a freedom in that. There's such a
Mm-hmm.
freedom in not having to know,
Mm-hmm.
because I already know that my wholeness knows. So, I mean, what the heck? I
Mm-hmm.
don't need to know. I'll know when I need to know.
And all is always well in your reality. So then all of
Exactly.
this knowingness doesn't, it's irrelevant.
Yeah,
Knowing so many things
exactly.
is irrelevant.
But
And
it
all of these things
occupies too much
come.
space.
Yeah.
Because then the things they come in each moment and they don't
Yes.
occupy space, because then they disappear and they will be there when you need them and if you
That's
need
it.
them.
Yes.
So going to the back to that question, it's really again about whether you feel you are being dominated, or you feel you are somehow needing to protest or to go against something, or whether there is enough flexibility within you to, on one hand, know that your freedom is not dependent on the things that are happening outside, and on the other hand, you always have to make your choices for you. So this ties into what Alexis was really so wisely sharing about accountability, about really taking ownership, taking full responsibility. So when we make a clear and conscious choice about something, we have to deal with the consequences of that choice. So we have to be ready to, when we choose something that we feel from the depths of us is for us, is our reality, our what we want to be in, then we also have to realize that that has consequences. So nothing in the world of form, nothing has is sort of inconsequential, because the world of form is about action and reaction, about I can't remember, but I can't remember how we usually say it, but the
It's
cause and effect, the
and
cause and effect.
interaction between consciousness and
Right.
energy and matter, right?
So, exactly. So, in that interaction, precisely what happens is that, okay, so you have to feel for you. So, when you're in the tube wearing your mask, if you're feeling like angry or whatever, in what way is that serving you? Is that something that is healthy for you to feel that way? Or at the end of the day, okay, so if you've got a job where you have to wear a mask and you have to go on the public transport to reach it and so on, at the end of the day, if you keep on staying in that job and choosing to be in that reality because somehow it is what you like and what is serving you now, then it's time to come to peace with the other elements that choice includes. For instance, in my case, I have chosen to have a life where I don't need to do any of that because I work from home, so I don't need to wear the mask at home, and I don't need to. But if I go shopping or whatever, it doesn't make any difference to me that I put it on to go into the supermarket and then come back out and take it off. I mean, it doesn't really matter. But yeah, I do understand that it can be quite uncomfortable to be in a job like 8 hours with a mask on, and it's not only uncomfortable but eventually unhealthy to be breathing that kind of air all the time. But at the end of the day, is okay with the situation that each one has in their own life. What do they choose? For instance, we also had this conversation in the new Energy Waltz. Like I didn't take the vaccine because in my reality I don't really need it, and I don't see the purpose of it because I'm extremely healthy. The kind of interactions I have don't imply any of that, and I can choose. So if I want to, if I know that it's necessary to go to that or that place, I just don't go. I feel free anyway. It doesn't complete me to have to do this or that. Now in that case, I don't know in which country you live, but okay, so if going to visit your mom could be done by just doing a test, is that possible? So it depends. Of course, each country has a different context within this, but what I really feel is that if your choice is for freedom, all kinds of freedom, including political and governmental freedom, then stay firm that with that inside of your heart, but not in conflict with whatever is happening, because conflict is what we've already been playing at a long, long time. And if you study, like when we studied history at school, we come across, war upon war upon war upon conflict upon war. And so the result of that constant conflict has usually always turned out to be some sort of fight or war or whatever. So here it's really big choice of how to conciliate your your own sense of freedom, so keeping that balance within that gives you the peace, and how far are you willing to concede to something, and then what changes will you need to make if you are not willing to concede to those things. That's all perfectly fine. What happens is that whatever you really choose, then energy will serve you into implementing that which you are really choosing. As to whether governments are gonna change the way they are acting or not, well, we don't know. But for me, it's really all about how much freedom you can allow for yourself, and the more of us are who are allowing the freedom
Mm.
of their own choice and not being in conflict with anyone else's choices, and accepting also other points of view and not conflicting against them, but still keeping your choice firm, is an important step towards ending this kind of conflicting type of thing. And at the end of the day, if it comes to a point where we'll again, because we've already experienced this in the 20th century, be living dictatorships all over the place, well, we can always just ascend and go away and decide, okay, I've already had enough then of Earth experience or whatever. I mean, it's not, nothing really keeps us bound
Mm.
to anything. We are never really bound, no matter what is happening in the external reality. But of course, we can only really make that choice to ascend. Okay, so, right, okay, I've had enough of the Earth experience if we are at peace with it. because anything and everything that we are trying to escape because it's
mm,
painful will require us coming back for more,
mm,
coming
mm,
back to come to peace. So, coming to peace not only with the external reality, if we eventually choose to just depart, and coming to peace with the whole of ourself, of all, everything
mm,
integrated, everything here, then you can ascend. So, really, ascension within the physicality and staying here is a journey of peace, which is
mm.
their freedom. Freedom and peace, they come hand in hand. It's one and the same thing. I don't know if this somehow brought some clarity, but that's what I would like to share within that context.
Mm. And when you mentioned new energy walls, before we forget, because we get deep into things, I would like to invite everyone next weekend. So at the same time, on Saturday, we will have the 2 hour small group. We do a call in Zoom chat, private group, maximum 11 people. So if you're interested, please check out our websites, because that's where we go deeper with the issue. So today, the issue is freedom, and we speak with each and everyone has who participates has a chance to speak, and then we chat. It's a beautiful experience. And yeah, for me too, for like for me it's an exploration, you see. So it has to do, like, to do with that question. For me it has to do with exploration. I'm a scientist of a new energy, that's what I call myself. And that means that I explore just how free can I be within this physical realm, surrounded by people who are caught in mass consciousness. So what happens with the governments and stuff depends on them. So we are here radiating, and in many ways we are bringing so many potentials, and we have already changed the nature of this planet so that it can accommodate us. And so I find that, so for example, I explore, like, let's say freedom, how can I be free within this environment? So it's up to you. Try, test, work out, and just remember that being angry and resentful changed, like Tanya so beautifully put, you change the attitude about that. So a lot of things changed. It changed in my life, but it changed over the number of years. So the human can be very impatient with this, because the mind has its own ideas about how things should work. But really, it's again coming back to that, where your soul self works with the raw materials of your life, where you are, and within that situation, in that, you will then grow and expand and find different ways. A lot of the potentials will open to you. What you choose, there is no rule. There is nothing that anybody else will say this is right, this is wrong, because when when you keep coming back into that now moment, that's when you see all these potentials. So for example, perhaps at the moment you feel yourself trapped within these situations that the governments are creating, that but when you keep coming back to yourself, all of a sudden you'll see, remember, it's not a circle, it's a spiral, or even better, it's not even that. All of a sudden you see, wow, actually there are choices that I can make. And then you actually have the courage to then follow up within those potentials, within those choices, within that choice that you have decided, and you keep deciding. And before you know it, all of a sudden your life, not only that you feel free because you've claimed that freedom, and you feel freedom before it actually is apparent in your physical life, and then slowly that freedom just manifests, because you keep then making different kind of choices. And then where will you be within a year's time? Nobody can say, because it depends on all of those choices that you will make in that day. But what is certain, if you own your freedom, you will be much, much freer than you are today. And whether that is still going to the same job, going to a train, or whether you will be working maybe part-time, or whether you will be working for yourself from your home, or whether you will be living in a different country, or whether you will be living in the countryside, who knows? We don't know. But if you claim, because it all depends on your choices, but if you claim that freedom and you feel that freedom, even within this, that whatever is happening, you will feel free. You will create this world of freedom. And it maybe it has also to do with very practical ways, because I found that all of a sudden throughout all of these years, I've noticed all these spaces where I was able to make my life much more comfortable, much more free. For example, I go shopping after 8 when there's hardly anyone. You see, things, you change your habits, and all of a sudden, different priorities, and all of a sudden, you have more time. And all of a sudden, because you have time, new opportunities happen. And all of a sudden, all of those things, many things just fall away. But it is hard to say because it's all very unique to yourself. So it can feel frustrating to the human when we say, when we constantly keep saying, just keep doing what you're doing, come back into this now moment,
Yeah.
keep allowing, keep allowing yourself to be more and more open in that space. And you will then notice how you can perceive more. You will notice how you can perceive what you want, what you don't want, what is really yours, what is part of the mass consciousness. Then you realize some parts that you're doing because it's part of mass consciousness, you can easily just drop them away. And voila, all of a sudden you're much more free, in everyday life, because that's where you come. You realize your freedoms in everyday life. And also you feel free within your body, and also you then perceive just how free you are as a grand being. There's so many different levels and layers and flavors and deliciousness of freedom. And there's a lot of freedoms that you never physically even manifest also, because you realize that majority of who you really are is not physical. So, but all of these are just this delightful, amazing exploration of who you are as a consciousness, what life really is as your energy, your interaction, how you play within your space. And Tanya and I can talk about this, but we can't. We can only experience for each of ourselves.
Right.
You have to experience for yourself. And the only way that you experience, you change your view of things. You become, for me, I find it really helpful. I call myself an adventurer, an explorer, and that completely then changes all my views. So all of a sudden, if I find myself on a train where having to wear a mask, all of a sudden it's like, oh wow, what an interesting experience. Do I have to then keep doing that? But funnily enough, without even knowing, I found myself, even though, for example, let's say I'm in Australia, and Australia has on all of the freedom channels really bad name because they say, oh, it's becoming dictatorship. For me, the last 2 years have been the most free times in my whole life, because I have not had any restrictions. I have not had, up until just recently, no mask, no lockdowns, no nothing. I just happen to, I just follow the voice, the song of my soul. And so, did I know that I won't have any restrictions where I am? No, because I had no idea there will be COVID. But this is the nature of who you are, the nature of your guidance. When you claim something, and then so it is. And whether you're going to just all of a sudden choose a different place to live, or maybe you're going to go into a less populated, or maybe all of you, we don't know. We can't say this because really, as I mentioned before, it depends on your choices. But if you choose freedom and if you claim it, free you shall experience in whatever way, because it's all very unique to you. There is nothing, because these are some of the parts of the realization of your sovereignty. You realize there is no one that is a ruler of you. Some of these things become completely irrelevant. And yet at the same time, it is funny because then you become even more all of a sudden law abiding, because some of the rules you realize, if I go on a road, I follow the road rules because they make sense, because they don't, those things that make sense they don't actually stir or how can I say, stir me up anymore, because I feel myself so free that I'm okay with following any rules. They don't take away from my freedom at all, because I know they're temporary. I know they're part of the physical world, and they don't press any buttons, because I feel myself completely free. And there are so many audacious things that you end up doing in everyday life that have nothing to do with being in rebellion, because let's say there is an energy of rebellion where you're trying to fight, that is part of that battle, that is part of fighting, because you feel someone is keeping you imprisoned or non-free, and then you rebel against it. You're still part of that. That has nothing to do with that, but you because you it has to do with you realizing yourself so incredibly free that you let go of all of those parameters that are not true and that have no impact on anything. And then you allow yourself to be yourself within your daily life. That is so incredibly freeing, that nothing like what the governments do or don't do, it just becomes like an interesting TV series. You can watch the news not because you look at what's going on in the world, but you think, wow, what a fabulous and fascinating TV series it is. It becomes like that because it doesn't affect you, and yet at the same time it affects, somehow you just are okay because you've claimed that all is well in my world. Because when you claim all is well in my world, it doesn't mean that all will be well in other people's world. Not at all, because they too have to, each single individual has to claim that for themselves. But you find a way to move, to navigate, to move through this reality in such a graceful and beautiful and free way that none of it really affects you, even though some of the things you do have to do, like let's say that Tanya says, if you want to go to the shop, okay, you put on a mask. It doesn't press any buttons anymore, so. And like Tanya also beautifully described, yes, when you claim your life, when you claim that you are creator, everything you choose, then you deal with those consequences of that choice, with everything that it entails and involves, because there is no more, you're not a victim of anything, you're not in rebellion to anything, but you own everything that is happening in your life. And that is a very, very different way to be. And the presence of your soul guides you because it has an overview. So for example, some things are very practical. Like for me, it often, I go out and go for a drive and go on my trips, and I very rarely experience any issues. I go and all of a sudden, oh, look at that beautiful cloud. I'm going to go down this way because I want to see this cloud. It's so gorgeous. Or and all of a sudden, when I come back home the next day, I read, oh, there was a big landslide on the road ahead. I didn't know because I was following the cloud. I didn't turn because I needed to know there was a landslide and people had to wait for 5 hours in a line. I didn't wait because I was following the cloud, and then it took me that way and took me all the different way. I come home, had a beautiful day, and it's only afterwards that I realized, wow, this has happened, the flood has happened, this has happened. But for me, it was just beautiful things that happened. I come home and I have beautiful photographs and beautiful experience and nothing else. And even if I did find myself stuck in some road because of this this I choose to be an adventurer, even that would be, oh, let's see what that is like, kind of thing, so there are so many different, you have to find a way to be well in your world, you see, and how you deal with everything. You have to find a way within your world that you are, that all is well in my creation, that you are at peace, that you are in this beautiful space of self-love, and this is it's the most freeing way to be, because you are responsible for everything. But yes, it does carry that responsibility. Without that responsibility or taking ownership, it doesn't exist. You can't make it work. So should we look
Yes,
at
I'm so glad to hear all of that because that's exactly my experience, Alexis. That's how it happens for me too. It's just like that. Everything just sort of things happen and then you're not there because you weren't supposed to be and you didn't need to look. You didn't need to watch the news. I mean, you were guided one way or another. Basically, we're
mm,
experiencing new Earth. So it's like it's a
mm,
parallel reality that there's all of that stuff and then there's your reality. It's something else. It's
mm-hmm.
not on the same frequency.
Not at all, not at all. And you can have, as I said, for me, last 2 years have been the most free, but not because of what's been happening around to the humanity, but is because of the choices that I'm making. And then that's what happens, and because of the integrations that I've made, because of the work, and everyone has access to new earth if they've done the work. But if they haven't done the work, they have no access because they can't even perceive it. And so
I would
when,
say
yeah,
the past is peace.
yeah, yeah,
Right. If you're at peace with everything within you and around you, then you've got the pass into the new earth,
new
into
earth,
your
that's
new
right,
earth.
yeah. And at the same time, we have created, like what I'm amazed at is like whatever I look at all of these new things, because it's funny because even the mass consciousness works for us in this way. It
Yeah.
serves us because we've been able to change the energy of the earth so that it supports our lifestyle. So let's say 10, 20, 30 years ago, it was very hard to have, to have a job at home, for example. And yet now with technology, you see, we don't even have to create. We just choose the freedom, and then it's the people who are experts at that will create what supports our
What's
freedom.
necessary.
And now, for example, like let's say with this crypto and everything, there are so many new things in the works, and not just, okay, so I can do investments, but what those things actually do: support sovereignty, support self-responsibility, support ownership. There's just such incredible things in the loop that are becoming reality that will all support our way of life, meaning a sovereignty, a free way of life, and it's just incredible what this new energy is now bringing forth to support us. And we don't have to even do it. People
Yeah.
who are expert at this, they are building, they are creating, they are having these ideas because it's our radiance and our consciousness, because we are choosing to stay, and we're allowing the soul, the light of the soul, to be in this physical reality that is like lighting up all these potentials and all this science and all this technology, that we don't have to be afraid of it, because if there's consciousness, even technology serves us, you see. So we don't have to reject anything, because whatever we touch, we transform, and it all then becomes part of this all is well in our creation. I am free, I am sovereign, and then everything follows. The only thing is that because we are in physical, some things do require certain time to adjust, to change. Like, for example, let's say if you need a good road, it takes maybe 6 months, or I don't know how long it takes to build that road, because we are in a physical, but built it shall be. You can be certain of that, you see. So it's quite incredible. And this is why I'm just constantly in amazement, and I love being in that space. And I keep choosing the words that I'm choosing, and then just allowing them to be, these kind of words: magnificent, amazed, brilliant,
Yeah.
wonderful. Why not be all of these things in everyday life, whatever you're doing? You can claim them. It doesn't matter how restricted you feel, or I'm free. Claim these words, but not just say them, but feel them. And you will notice what a miracles start happening, because things that you will then notice that were there before and you didn't see them, the potentials, the ways to do things, you didn't see them before because you're so stuck. or if they're not there before, all of a sudden they will be created. So, you know, the life, the world is our oyster. That's all I can say. And I think Tanya, we've gone almost 2 hours. I think we should
Oh
look
my
at any
God.
questions. If anybody has questions, please type them up. I've kind of been checking the Facebook as well, just to see if there are any questions there. But did you want to have a look, or do you want me to read the question, Tanya?
There's not a question. It's just, dear souls, thank you for sharing your song of freedom. Thank you very
And
much.
thank you. And so I think we've come to the end. If you want to
Yeah.
say a final word, some
So
final words.
coming to the end and realizing, I remember the time when I came into the notion of affirmations, and that sort of saying affirmations that would somehow change things. And now my point of view around that is quite different, because once that this integration into freedom starts happening and all of these parts are set free and so on, our vocabulary changes naturally. My vocabulary is rich but very limited to marvelous, magnificent, fabulous, wonderful, great, brilliant, etc. And then I actually I found myself looking up synonyms for these words, because I use these words so much, because it's just what comes to me.
You know what? I do the same, because to me it
It's like,
feels like
oh, can I say another way? How can I say this another way?
what am I gonna say? And I feel so limited to when I'm replying to people, let's say on Facebook or
Yeah,
something. I'm
like
thinking,
me.
I just keep saying the same thing.
Oh,
I
fabulous.
mean,
Oh, great. Oh, wonderful. Oh, and but the thing is, it's not because I'm living in some fantasy kind of world like la di da, fairyland, whatever. My world is really, honestly, totally true. It's like that.
yeah,
It
yeah,
is like that. It's not a fantasy. It's real. So if that makes sense to you and it resonates to you, anyone who's listening, whatever, if you feel that in your heart, be sure that that is yours. It is yours. It just takes time to start manifesting, and that you can see it in your reality every day with all of the transformation that needs to happen and so on. But if it resonates with you, that the possibility of a world like that, and that it's not a fantasy land, it's real, 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 every day for sure, then claim it. Just claim it. It is yours. So thank you very much, everyone. Thank you very much, Alexis. It's been so beautiful to listen to you and to be part of this dance, and for us to dance together. And next week, I look forward to meeting whoever will be there in the new Energy Waltz with us. Thank you.
and thank you, dear Tanya. This has been beautiful, and what a gorgeous way to share our friendship and our sisterhood and our co-creation, and with each and every one of you who is participating now or later. And me too, I'm looking forward to next week. Please do check out this new Energy Waltz, because that's where we go deeper with each individual. And both Tanya and I were looking forward to speaking with you there. And until next time, namaste.